big cameras, small cameras, cool cameras, weird cameras. Let's take a long, loving look at my camera collection. Hey everyone, it's VM Campos, camera fan, analog camera fan. 2022 was a great year for photography, wasn't it? More and more of us are getting back into this amazing hobby. I know I did. So this video is gonna be a long, loving look at my 10 favorite cameras that I used in 2022. Maybe you'll find a gem or two yourself that you might be interested in shooting with in 2023. Also, I'd love to hear your thoughts on your favorite camera of the year. Put them in the comments. Let's get on with the episode. Alright, starting off in the realm of 35 millimeters. Here's a vintage point-and-shoot camera. This is the Konica Auto S3. It's a really nice compact point-and-shoot camera. I love the winding action and the silent shutter. This is 35 millimeter. It's a high-end, actually kind of hard to get camera. The one that I got from eBay. It's got a little bit of damage here and there, but the image quality works great. Actually, also another weird thing about this one is that the meter is slightly off, but I've been able to figure out how to compensate to get perfect exposure. What's cool about this is it's a rangefinder. So you got a focus area that has very little travel, so that's cool. Focusing from 0.9 meters up to infinity. Sweet spot is right there. And it's programmed, it's semi-automatic. You just have to set your shutter speed to what you think will work in your particular environment. You need to take some fast motion photos, so you set it at a 500, normal at 125. That seems to be the optimal speed. If things are slower than that, you can dial it down there. And so you're setting the shutter speed and it'll set the aperture for you. Now I really like this camera because it's so compact, it's so discreet, it's perfect for street photography. It's got a great lens, a 1.8 f1.8 lens at 38 millimeter, so relatively wide, and a big ol' 1.8. I really enjoyed using this camera in 2022. If you can get a copy of it for a good price, have at it. It's a really nice camera. You can also get the more affordable little brother, the Konica C35 Flashmatic. Not the same lens and aperture and such. This one's a little bit better, but that one's kind of more affordable than this one. Although I love this little one. My other favorite 35mm camera of 2022 is another Konica. Now this is funny because back in the day I was a big old Canon fan and I was always getting Canon cameras in film and digital. And then when I got back into film this time around in 2022, I really went for the Canon cameras. So just a classic rangefinder from the 60s. A 45mm, closer to normal, a 45mm 1.8 hexanon. It's mechanical. It does have a light meter, but mine, it's broken, so the light meter doesn't work, but no problem. You can use apps, you can use Sunny 16 rule because you have the full control here. You have shutter speeds between 1/500th of a second down to 1 second plus bulb, and also your apertures from f16 down to 1.8. It's just so shiny, it's so metallic, it's just this classic silver and black style with the new loading system. Also synchronizes with flash. It's a cold shoe over there, so you need to plug it in with this type of flash. You got a tiny little depth of field meter or focus zone right there. And yeah, it's got this, I was noticing that the Konicas have a really small travel for focusing close up to far away instead of just turning and turning and turning to try to get your focus. It's in a relatively short amount of time. It's got a self-timer too, but it's not recommended to use the self-timers for these older cameras. I don't do that. And so yeah, I use an app to set up my exposure and I like the results. We got a cool little lens hood right here as well. Konica. It's the Auto S2, not the Auto 52. Some people think that's a 5. Nope, it's the Auto S2 from Konica in the 60s. It's kind of bulky because it's all metal, and glass, no plastic and the like, except for that, I guess. Well, that might be glass too. And so I really like the style of this. The action of advancing the film is very nice. And then the shutter is also pretty quiet too. This is more of the full functional manual 35mm camera. I used this one a lot in 2022. Pick up a copy of this camera off of eBay. A fully working one should be around $100 with meter if you need the meter built in. And a non-working meter should cut that off by dozens of dollars. And I would recommend the Konica Auto S2 for full manual 35mm film photography. Moving over to medium format, I really fell in love with these folder cameras from the 50s, from the 60s, and this one works perfectly, and it's a great compact camera for medium format. It's this folding style. Love how it pops out, and it's just got this classic style. It's a bellows style camera. So obviously the downside with this type of camera is you got to make sure you don't have light leaks in the bellows, because that's a material that can degrade after the decades. You can patch it up, you can get it replaced and such. And so this one's got shutter speeds of up to 1/500th of a second down to 1 second and bulb, plus f-stops on the top over here. And it's completely mechanical, no meter at all. You need to know the Sunny 16 rule. You need to use an app. You need to stop and think when you use this camera, because you need to load the rolls of 120 film right over here in the back. You need to set that up right there, put the roll over, crank it manually, check the little window here that you're at the right exposure. By the way, this takes 6x6, or you put the little mask into it and you take 645 film. I like 6x6 a little better. So anyway, you advance the film up to the right number, then you have to set your shutter speed and your aperture, and don't forget to cock the shutter mechanism right there, or when you try to take the photo, nothing will happen. You need to cock it. And then you need to remember to advance the film to the next frame and not double expose your film on the same shot. Be careful about that. So it's completely old school, completely mechanical, beautiful design, the black and the silver design, simple viewfinder. It's not a coupled focus. What you focus over here has nothing to do with what you see over here. It's just a viewfinder. It's not a rangefinder. It's uncoupled. So no worries if you know how to take photography with the red dot method. So if you're shooting at f11, that's your perfect focus right there. If you set it to this dot right there as well. See, they figured it out with no mechanical components, with no batteries. You just have to trust in the science of photography and set all of those 10 settings before you even take one shot. But that slower mode of photography, I love it. You should give it a shot. And these are just so compact. They still fit in your pocket. I can put this in my back pocket, and I've done it on photo shoots. Just close it up, put it in your back pocket. Don't sit down, and this camera's there ready to go. Got it on eBay, very good price. Works perfectly. I've been amazed with the results of the medium format compared to 35mm. It's nice and hefty, classic. It's a conversation piece. It's photography on a slower level. Let's go back even further. Here is a Kodak Tourist. There's so many models of the Tourist that it's just kind of hard to explain which one you even have. This is, I think, like a version 1.0 or so, something like that. It's another folding camera. This one's from Kodak. Completely mechanical. No batteries, no meter, no coupled rangefinder, no help in turning your film to the next frame. It's just completely mechanical. You get this cool little slider here to set up, okay, today's hazy and sunny, and I'm using this type of black and white film, so I'll set it to that. Amazing. And then you open up the red window and advance. Well, speaking of which, let's open up the camera. Just another beautiful classic folding camera. And I took this one actually to San Diego Comic-Con 2022. I got stopped by people asking about the camera because this is a showstopper. This is a 70-year-old camera. and it's just an amazing thing to have in the 21st century, and it still works. They still make film for this, of course. This takes 120 film, and all the mechanical aspects of it still work. You have to, just like that Fujica, you have to cock it, and then you can actually take the photo, which is found over here, which is interesting. And there it goes, took the photo. Now, what's cool about this camera is that it is a 6x9 camera, not a square 6x6. Open this up. It's got a 6x9 aspect ratio, and I love that aspect ratio. That is the same aspect ratio as 35mm, but this is like 4 times, 5 times larger than a 35mm negative. These are huge. These would be made as contact prints back in the day. A huge photo out of this huge negative. Now, another thing that's weird, that's interesting about this, it uses Kodak 620 film, not 120. Oh, good old Kodak making their own formats. You have to buy new film. So you can buy 620 film, which is more expensive than 120. You can re-roll the 120 film into a 620 spool, or you can modify the 120 spool, I found, by trimming a little bit of the plastic and sanding off the tops. It fits in here, no problem. And then this camera is resurrected 70 years later. And I really liked the results that I got when I went to Comic-Con. I want to shoot this camera a little bit more. It's just so cool. This is just, you know, super hipster type of camera that no one has this. No one knows what kind of camera this is. And it's just a really cool relic from the past that still works. The principles of photography still hold in place decades later. No need for batteries, and modern film works just perfectly fine. This is actually very affordable online if you want to look it up, just to try a different camera once in a while. The good old Holga. If you know, you know. If you don't know, well, this is a completely cheapo plastic camera that works half the time, that has horrific light leaks most of the time, that falls apart if you're not careful with it, that is completely mechanical. So harsh. With a joke of a focus and a joke of an exposure, this camera is a joke, and I love it. I've made some amazing photos with this camera. This was my very first medium format camera when I was first into film photography back in 2001, 2002, something like that. And I dusted it off when I came back into analog film photography in 2012. And then 10 years later in 2022, I'm into film photography again, dusted it off. Glad I never got rid of it. And yeah, this makes, it makes cool photos. It's just so low tech. That's part of the aesthetic. It gives you great vibes and tones. Am I saying those words right? But anyway, yeah, the good old Holga 120N. And completely on the other side is the Fujica GW690 professional camera. It's so big it doesn't even fit on screen. But this is a camera much more modern than the ones I've shown you so far. So modern. It's from the 70s, 1978 actually. And this is also a huge 6x9 medium format camera. So on a regular roll of 120 film, it gives you 8 shots. So you better make them count. And so what's cool about this one is it's a medium format camera that finally actually has through the lens focusing. The other ones that I was showing you didn't have through the lens focusing. This one does, and that is a game changer. Besides that, it's completely mechanical, no batteries needed. Focusing is only in meters, so I gotta do my calculations. 1 meter is like 69 feet or something, right? Something nice like that, I don't know. And it's got f-stops up to f32 down to 3.5, shutter speeds of the standard 500 down to 1 second leaf shutter. So this is huge. It's just so heavy. It's been used. It's part of my collection now. It's been shot. Let's see, how does this go again? Is it on this side or the other side? I guess around. It's been shot under 2,000 times or so, something like that. It's huge. It's bulky. It's professional. It's amazing, and the results are amazing. Now, what's this over here? Well, I'm using this hot shoe light meter. I picked up the Kex meter. This is version 2.0. Highly recommend it. I've really been enjoying it. It's compact. It fits on the hot shoe on any camera. You need to put a little painter's tape there so it doesn't fall off. And this has been a lifesaver for me to take photos with this camera and my other manual cameras. So highly recommended on that. I forgot to mention here, this does have various modes actually. On 120 film, with the proper mask and such, you can set it to 4 exposures, 8 exposures, or if you get 220 film, which they don't really make anymore, except for one manufacturer, you can get 16 shots out of this behemoth. This is a huge camera, but I've been hugely enjoying it. The Fujifilm Fujica GW690. It's huge. Moving over to instant film, I have this Polaroid One600. There's so many variations of this. When I was looking them up online, there's just so many of these late stage original Polaroid cameras out there. Mine focuses at 2 feet, and that's one way to tell which version you have. The common one is minimum 3 feet. The Pro one is like a 1 foot or 1.5 feet, and this one is somewhere in the middle with 2 feet to infinity. So yeah, it's a Kodak film camera. I got this one again back in 2012 or so. It is the most modern version because it's got an LCD counter. It also gets very compact and svelte like that, and then when you pop it up, you're ready to shoot. Now, unfortunately, I have to say I've been extremely disappointed with Polaroid photography. And every time I've shot Polaroids, I've just been so disappointed. Back in 2012, when it was still Polaroid making Polaroid film, the film was way better. And long story short, Polaroid went bankrupt because of this newfangled digital photography. A group of fans resurrected it as the Impossible Project, and then eventually they became the main company officially, Polaroid. And bless them, but they're working on making the formula better. But what was their latest announcement? They announced a Bluetooth speaker system instead of better chemistry. So unfortunately, I've really got to say, don't bother with Polaroid film, especially if you can really only get it locally at a store, Target and such. I hear tell that if you get it directly from Polaroid company, it's better, but I don't know. I'm just very disappointed with Polaroid instant film nowadays. I can't recommend it anymore, sorry. Instead, if you really want to get into instant film photography, go with Fuji's solution. Their Instax line is way better. It's 3 different sizes, mini, square, and wide, and cameras are new and old stock as well, and so that's the one I recommend. Sorry Polaroid, you had a really long, beautiful run, but modern Polaroid is just such a disappointment. I've jumped ship over to Fujifilm. So the Instax 210 is a camera that came out a little while ago, and it shoots in the wide format. Basically, this is how wide that is. So it's different aspect ratio than Polaroid, but it's wide and it's modern chemistry and it works. It's got a 95mm with a 0.9 meters to infinity focus, with a little bit of high-tech electronics over here, built-in flash, brighter, darker exposure, etc. And I've been much happier with the results of the Fuji instant film compared to the Polaroid / Impossible instant film. That's been very disappointing. This has been very, what's the opposite of disappointing? So kind of a little bit too plasticky feeling, perhaps, kind of also bulky. It barely fits on my camera here. And then it's just a viewfinder, not a rangefinder, but results have been beautiful. So if you want to do instant film photography big, well, you can get the Instax minis, which are like credit card size and very nice. But if you want to get to the largest size of instant, the wide Instax films are highly recommended. We'll wrap up the video with a couple of weird cameras that I loved using in 2022. So this is the ImageTech 3DFX 3D camera. It's got 3 lenses to take 3 shots to create 3D images. Yeah, right. So this was something from the 90s or so that you put in regular old 35mm film, you take a photo, it takes 3 shots at once at slightly different angles. And those 3 slightly different angles would then be combined into one lenticular type of photo that you had to, I think, send away for and get it back in the mail months later, and you'd have 3D photos. I've never seen the results of these on a YouTube video in actual vintage 3D. Hopefully they can be uncovered there somewhere, and no photo place is going to be able to recreate that effect anymore. What people are doing nowadays is loading up all 3 photos and then in an image processor software and combining them, and they make cool little 3D animation sort of things. They're fun. And what I like about this is it's just point and shoot. You don't even think about it. You put in 400 speed film, turn on the flash, and just take photos. And I've gotten some great results out of this camera. It's a cheapo plastic lens, well, 3 of them. So do 3 cheap things add up to 1 slightly less cheap thing. And it's all just completely mechanical. Turn it here, rewind it, etc. Very loud. Crank and shutter. Completely cheapo. You just need to put in AA batteries for the flash. And yep, my serial number 729694 of the 3D image technology, ImageTech 3DFX, whatever this camera's called. This has been a very enjoyable camera to use. This is also a great like low-mo camera. Great for lomography, just point and shoot, don't think. Take great photos, be in the moment. Check them out afterwards, pick the best ones. And just another way of doing photography from the previous ones I've shown with a lot more effort to like no effort, just point and shoot. Have fun, you get 3 shots in one, and that's cool. Another weird camera is this Yashica Samurai X4. It is relatively modern. I think it's from the 90s. It's got built-in zoom from 25 to 100. It's got flash and everything. But what's really cool about this camera is that it is a half frame. So you get double the shots out of 1 roll of film. That's a half gate right there. So you got a 35mm roll of film of 24 shots. Nope, now you've got 48 shots. Sorry, no film. You've got a roll of 36 exposures. Nope, you've got 72 exposures. You get these half shots. Quality is very good with this lens. It's actual glass, not plastic. And you can put in an accessory up on the top. Flash is all right. Very good zoom range. So I've been enjoying this camera as well. This WTF camera. The X3 is more common. It's got a shorter zoom range. The X4 goes up to 100mm zoom focus. This looks like a video camera holding it this way, but it's a film camera that takes 35mm and gives you half frames. I picked this up at a thrift store for $10. Yes, this one I got it also back in 2012 when I got back into photography, and yes, it was very cheap. Because at that time, film was dead. And nowadays we know hashtag film is not dead. So be on the lookout for the Kyocera Yashica Samurai X3. And I think we'll wrap up the video at this point. Well, actually, I've got one more. This Canon PowerShot A590 IS. Hey, wait a minute, this is not a film camera. Nope, this is a digital camera. I need more batteries. So, in this film all about vintage analog film photography, I'll end with the next level of hipsterness. Vintage digital cameras from the early 2000s are back for some people. Some people love the old nostalgia of an 8-megapixel behemoth, of a 2-megapixel point and shoot, of a tiny, slim little camera that is pocketable everywhere you go. This aesthetic is coming back. Believe me, head on over to reddit.com/r/vintage digital cameras to see a vibrant community of digicam enthusiasts dusting off these old cameras and using them again. There's something about the simplicity of these things. Actually, when I bought this in 2009, it's mine from 2009, debuted in 2008. When I bought this, I wanted to get a camera that had more modes. It's got a full manual mode, plus priority modes, programs, and all of these other, plus video at beautiful 640 by 480 resolution. But this has been a very enjoyable camera to resurrect after all of these years and start using it again. Image stabilization is pretty nice. Takes plain old SD cards. There's several that are way more vintage, that are way more cumbersome to use. And if you go to that subreddit, there's a vibrant community sharing their findings of cameras and, more importantly, the actual photography. And maybe if film photography is getting a little too expensive, Kodak says they're gonna raise prices. You might want to dust off one of those old vintage digicams and join us on that subreddit and rediscover a version of photography you might have forgotten. Whew, that was a big one. That's what she said. And so we'll end up the video here. Hopefully you enjoyed my walk through my favorite gear of 2022. Maybe you're inspired to grab one of these cameras or a variation. I'd like to hear what you currently are shooting or thinking of picking up. What about your favorite film stock? What's your favorite photo? Tell me all that stuff in the comments. I'd love to hear it. If you enjoyed this video and everything that I do on YouTube, consider pressing the join button right here in YouTube to pledge to the channel and help me out. I love creating content on YouTube, and it really makes it worthwhile when you all can contribute a few dollars here and there to keep the channel funded, to keep the channel going, to keep me motivated. I would really appreciate a few bucks, a join, a super chat, a thanks, and all that good stuff. Or head on over to Patreon, patreon.com/vmcampos, to do the same thing. Wherever you'd like to pledge, I would really appreciate it. There's very few fans of the work of us content creators that actually take that extra step to donate. All of this time takes time and effort and editing, blood, sweat, and tears. And when you, the fans, can chip in a few bucks, it really helps. Every dollar helps. And for those of you that are pledging, I totally appreciate it. Thank you, VMC crew. Upward and onward in the year 2023. This has been VM Campos, and I'll see you in the next video.